Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Uncle Pinocchio's Children's Tales. Get ready for amazing kids' stories with great morals and magic. I can't wait to share all my favorite tales with you. So snuggle up and get comfy. Are you ready? Let the adventure begin. Coming up next, story number 1.
What would happen if a classroom ran without a teacher, only with students in charge? This story holds a great moral you'll discover at the end. At the top of Mount Silence, there was a school hidden among the clouds where bubble children lived. Light, shiny, and very, very noisy. Master Brumo, a blue-feathered owl who had taught there for centuries, one day decided to disappear, leaving behind a note. Today, you are in charge. At first, the bubble children jumped with excitement. No rules, no homework, no duties. Just games, laughter, and more games. Bolko, the naughtiest, shouted, "Today, we'll play non-stop floating." They all rolled across the cloud ceiling, bumping into each other with laughter. But the next day, without anyone to guide them, problems began. No one wanted to clean the floating tables or inflate the sleepy bubbles. "It's not my turn," shouted one bubble. "Not mine either," said another. The classroom became chaos, sticky blackboards and balloons popping everywhere. The air library collapsed when no one wanted to sort the floating books. Letters flew around senselessly, and stories started to tangle. Tula, a transparent bubble with a wind-like voice, tried to speak. "Maybe we need to get organized." But no one listened. On the third day, the sun didn't rise. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the classroom began to slowly deflate. "Where is Master Brumo?" cried a baby bubble as the walls creaked like wet paper. Then something strange happened. The great clock suspended in the air stopped ticking. And with it, the classroom's time came to a halt. The bubbles froze mid-complaint, mid-laugh, mid-grimace. Only Tula could move, thanks to her silence and attention. Guided by the sleeping tick-tock, she reached the back of the classroom where a forgotten corner shone. The box of decisions. Inside, she found one of Brumo's blue feathers and a note that read, "When everyone leads, no one guides. Find the balance." Tula decided to act. She floated to the center and gently blew a melody with her wind-like voice. The notes awakened the clouds and a soft light began to stream through the windows. The bubbles slowly started to move again. "What happened?" asked Bolko, his eyes round as plates. "We got trapped in our own mess," replied Tula. "I didn't want to tidy up," one muttered. "Nor study," said another. Tula took a deep breath and suggested, "What if we all do just a little?" At first, there was silence. Then, one bubble came forward to clean a corner. Another gathered floating letters. Bolko sighed. "I can inflate the sleepy ones, but just one." The others laughed, and harmony began to return. With every effort, the clock began to tick again, and the classroom regained its color and shape. The sky cleared, and the sun came dancing in. A scent of sweet chalk filled the air, and suddenly a figure appeared at the door. Brumo, the blue owl. "You learned more in 3 days without me than in 3 years with me," he said with a smile in his eyes. From then on, the Cloud School had something new, a bubble council where everyone decided, but also everyone helped. Tula became a guide for the newcomers. She told them how a melody can change everything, even stopped time. Bolko became the game organizer and learned that having fun is even better when everything is in order. Each week, they wrote new rules together, but the most important one was the simplest. We always care for and listen to each other. The bubbles began to shine brighter than ever, and when they floated in the air, they did so with meaning, with rhythm, with harmony. And so, the classroom without a teacher became a classroom where everyone was a little bit of a guide, a little bit of a student, and very, very happy. Moral: when everyone wants to lead, direction is lost. But when everyone cooperates, the true magic of learning begins. See you very soon with more magical stories that will make your imagination soar and touch your heart in every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 2.
Have you ever imagined a soup that sang melodies while you stirred it? This story holds a great moral you'll discover at the end. In the small town of Deep Ladle, there was a magical kitchen where ingredients danced before being cooked. There lived Supina, a peculiar soup made of pumpkin, golden noodles, and a pinch of musical notes. Supina wasn't just tasty. When no one was watching, she hummed tunes that made plants bloom. Chef Bonzo, a raccoon with a giant hat and a dangling spoon, never knew his star soup had a life of its own. But a girl with broken headphones named Lyra, who listened to the world differently, was the first to hear her song. "That soup sings," Lyra said one day, while everyone in the tavern laughed, thinking it was just her imagination. Lyra came back every afternoon with her notebook, writing down Supina's lyrics. They spoke of sun, rain, and forgotten hugs. One day, Bonzo tried a new seasoning, silence powder. He wanted an elegant soup without noise or distractions. But when he added it, Supina stopped singing. The garden of magical herbs withered. Something was very wrong. Lyra cried silently upon noticing her soup friend now floated without melody or spark. "She's lost her voice," she shouted. She ran into the forest seeking help and found Fizz, a fox with foamy whiskers. Fizz could smell emotions. "Your soup is afraid. She doesn't need ingredients. She needs to be heard." Together, they returned to the tavern that night with homemade instruments and a plan full of notes. Lyra played a corn-leaf flute, Fizz blew a pepper trumpet, and the air vibrated with ancient magic. Supina quivered. She bubbled. Then she sang. Not a sad song, but a symphony of joy and renewed fire. Furniture jumped. Spoons spun on their own. The broth rose in dancing spirals. Bonzo woke up, astonished by the spectacle. "Who's making noise in my kitchen?" But upon seeing Supina sing, his eyes filled with tears. "Did I make this?" he whispered. Lyra nodded. "Yes, but you can also give her voice back every day if you respect her." From that day on, Bonzo cooked with soft music and kind words. He never used silence powder again. The tavern filled with visitors who came to hear the soup sing while warming their souls. Fizz became conductor of ingredients, leading oregano and celery like violins and kettle drums. Supina became a legend. Every spoonful healed an emotion and left a verse on the tongue. But one day, a food critic arrived, cold as frost, who didn't believe in magic or songs. "The soup doesn't sing, it just bubbles," he said, and mocked Lyra, calling her the girl who hears soups. Then Supina did something unexpected. She sang the critic's lost childhood, with his grandma and red blanket. The man broke down. He cried. He laughed. And then said, "I've never tasted such a flavorful song." From then on, everyone who doubted, upon tasting Supina, discovered they had music inside too. Because Supina didn't just sing, she awakened sleeping melodies in every heart. Moral: sometimes, the most valuable part of something isn't in its shape or function, but in the emotion it awakens in those who dare to listen. See you very soon, with more magical tales that will make your imagination soar and touch your heart in every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 3.
What would happen if the most serious clown in the world had to make people laugh to save his circus? This story holds a powerful moral that you'll discover at the end. At the Pompon Circus lived Plumbico, a clown who never laughed. His face was painted, his wig was huge, but not a single smile lived in his heart. While the other clowns made balloons and juggled, Plumbico read philosophy books and organized his shoes by exact color and size. "A clown must laugh," the children shouted. But Plumbico would only raise an eyebrow and reply, "Humor is a form of ordered chaos I reject." He had only one friend, Button, a mouse who lived in his jacket. Button was cheerful, squeaky, and joined him in every no-laughing rehearsal. One night, a letter arrived. If Plumbico didn't make the judges laugh at the Grand Smile Gala, the circus would lose its main star. "I am the main star," said Plumbico with a mix of fear and dignity. "Then you'll have to shine and laugh," squeaked Button. Plumbico rehearsed in front of the mirror. He tried math jokes, symmetrical faces, and perfectly calculated jumps. No one laughed, not even him. "What if I write a poem about laughter?" he asked. But his voice sounded more serious than a ruler. The audience yawned before he even began. The day of the show arrived. The lights were shining, the ring smelled of popcorn, and everyone was waiting for Plumbico to do the impossible: laugh. He walked to the center with measured steps. Button, hidden in his hat, whispered, "Just feel. Don't think so much, Plumbico." He looked up and saw the children. Some held balloons, others were chewing on their shoelaces. All of them were waiting for magic. Then something fell from the sky. A shower of cream pies. It was part of another clown's act. But the wind changed the script. One pie flew straight into Plumbico's face. His red nose disappeared under the meringue. The audience went silent. Plumbico blinked. Button slipped and tumbled down his cream-covered forehead. Plumbico sneezed so hard his wig flew off. The audience burst into laughter. Plumbico looked around, and for the first time, he didn't plan his reaction. A laugh slipped out. Small, real. The laughter grew. A kid shouted, "Another pie, you weird clown!" Another threw a ball that bounced off Plumbico's head. Instead of getting angry, Plumbico slipped on purpose, fell backward, and his shoe flew off, landing in a decorative fish bowl. The circus roared with laughter. Button danced on his shoulder, and Plumbico laughed like he didn't know how to hold back joy. Someone on the jury shouted, "I've never seen a clown so strange, so unique, and so funny without trying." They all gave him a 10. That night, Plumbico didn't go back to organizing his shoes. He put them on backwards and went out to play with the other clowns under the moon. He began mixing books with jokes. He told philosophical humor that only a few understood, but everyone laughed just the same. He learned to trip with grace, fall with rhythm, and use his seriousness as a tool to spark smiles. Button became his artistic partner. Each night, he had a new costume: astronaut mouse, wizard mouse, dragon mouse. Plumbico even wrote a play, The Art of Laughing Without Knowing How, and it was a hit in every neighboring circus. The circus director, with tears of laughter, named him the most serious and charming clown in the world. From then on, children from everywhere came to see the clown who didn't know how to laugh, and ended up teaching others how to. One day, a little girl asked, "What does it feel like to make people laugh when you don't know how?" Plumbico replied, "It's like trying to fly with a stone in your pocket and realizing that stone is a feather." And the audience applauded, and Button played the drum with a cookie, and the world became, for a few minutes, a happier place. Moral: sometimes what we believe makes us less special is exactly what can make us shine brighter than ever. See you very soon with more magical stories that will make your imagination soar and touch your heart in every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 4.
Can a letter change your life before it's even written? This story holds a great moral you'll discover at the end. In the cupboard of an old stationery shop lived a blank letter named Zula, with golden edges, a scent of vanilla, and a deep desire to be written. Around her, other letters told stories of love, adventures, and farewells. Zula, however, remained untouched. No ink, no voice, no purpose. "Maybe I have nothing important to say," she whispered each night, watching others get chosen, signed, sealed, and sent out into the world. One day, a mischievous wind slipped through the crack in the door and scattered everything on the counter. Zula fell to the floor, sliding between envelopes and ink. There she met Tin, a broken pen that had lost its ink, but not its wit. "Have you ever thought you could write yourself?" he said. Zula laughed. "A letter that writes itself? That sounds impossible." But Tin, with a sparkling voice, replied, "Impossible things are just stories that haven't dared to be told yet." That night, while everyone slept, Zula and Tin dove into the madness. They tried writing words with dewdrops and pigment from dust. They started with a line, "Dear world, I have something to say, though I don't yet know what it is." The ink was faint, but the words pulsed. With each phrase written, Zula felt her paper tremble. She was beginning to have a story, emotion, life. But something was still missing. The letter was beautiful, but incomplete. Zula felt the ending had to be special, something that couldn't be erased. Tin suggested they search for inspiration in the outside world. So they waited for dawn and rolled out of the stationery shop. They rolled through streets, jumped across puddles, hid from the rain under forgotten umbrellas, and listened to laughter, whispers, and songs. In a park, they saw a girl named Lua, sitting alone on a bench, hugging an old scarf and softly crying. Zula approached, trembling. The wind nudged her to the girl's feet. Lua picked her up and smiled faintly. "What's this?" she murmured. Seeing the handwritten words in shaky ink, Lua read aloud, "Dear world, I have something to say, though I don't yet know what it is." Suddenly, Lua searched her backpack for a pen, but it was dry. And just then, Tin rolled in front of her, as if he knew it was his moment. Lua picked up the broken pen, shook it, and to everyone's surprise, a drop of blue ink fell. It was enough for one sentence. With a steady hand, Lua wrote, "Thank you for finding me. Today, I learned I'm not alone." And she signed it, with a small heart drawing. In that moment, Zula knew her story was complete. Not because someone wrote it, but because she had arrived where she was meant to be. Lua folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her scarf. She carried it with her day after day, like a sweet secret, like a paper hug. Weeks passed, and one day Lua left it on another bench in the park with a note. "If you need hope, this letter is for you." And so, Zula began an endless journey. She was read by a lonely old man, a florist without customers, a boy afraid to sleep. Each one added something, a word, a drawing, a new line, and Zula transformed, growing with every reader, never losing her soul. But one afternoon, as she flew in a postman's hands, a gust of wind swept her into the branches of an old tree. There she got stuck. She waited days, nights, moons, thinking her story had ended among real leaves. Until a curious crow found her, read her, and with unusual tenderness, carried her in its beak to a distant school. A teacher found her on her desk. She read it, cried, and placed it on the classroom wall under a sign that said, "Words that heal." Since then, Zula never traveled again. But every day, new children read her, learned from her, and wrote their own version aloud. Tin, though inkless, was framed beside her. Because sometimes, those without strength are the ones who awaken the greatest stories. Moral: sometimes, the most important words haven't been written yet. They're just waiting for someone brave enough to begin them. See you very soon with more magical tales that will make your imagination soar and touch your heart with every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 5.
What would you do if one day you discovered that a baby could shine like a star? This story contains a powerful moral that you'll uncover at the end. In a small village surrounded by mountains, Lumo was born, a baby with skin as soft as cotton and a heart that glowed in the dark. Every time he laughed, a warm light would emerge from his chest and fill the room, as if the sun had awakened inside him. His family covered him with blankets at night, but his glow passed through everything, filling the house with magical sparkles. At first, everyone in the village was amazed. "It's a miracle," they said. "A child with his own light," the elders murmured. But soon, some neighbors began to worry. "We can't sleep with so much light," they complained. "That child isn't normal." Despite it all, Lumo was happy. He played with night butterflies and dreamed of touching the stars that resembled him so much. His older sister, Brina, was the only one who didn't judge him. She protected him, invented light and shadow games, and made him feel loved. One night, during a strong storm, the entire village lost electricity. Everything turned dark and frightening. Children cried, candles wouldn't light, and fear filled every corner. That's when Lumo's heart began to shine brighter. His light passed through the walls and reached every house. People came out into the streets, looking for the source of that luminous hope. Lumo, barely standing, smiled from the hill. His light didn't just illuminate the town, it calmed their hearts. "It's him! The glowing baby saved us!" some shouted. Others fell to their knees, thankful for that unexpected light. From that night on, everyone in the village called him Little Sun and built a crystal cradle so his light could reach even farther. But as days passed, the glow began to change. It was dimmer, colder. Lumo didn't laugh as much. Something inside him was fading. Brina noticed her little brother no longer played or looked at the sky. He just slept, as if his light had completely run out. Worried, Brina went to the elders. They said maybe the glow wasn't eternal, or that it had been consumed by sadness. But sadness? Everyone adores him now, Brina thought. Then she remembered something. No one played with him anymore. They only watched from afar. Lumo had become a spectacle, a source of light, but no longer a child. No one spoke to him. No one hugged him. They just used him. One night, Brina took him in her arms and carried him far from the village. She wrapped him in a soft blanket and whispered, "You don't have to shine for everyone. Just shine for yourself when you want to. Not to light the way for those who don't see you as a person," she said, stroking his cheek. Hearing those words, Lumo let out a deep sigh, and suddenly his heart emitted a new light, soft, dancing, joyful. His light was no longer a lamp. It was like the glow of a firefly, alive, playful, free. They decided to live for a while among the trees, in a cabin Brina decorated with mirrors, lanterns, and paper stars. There, Lumo learned to play, to hide his light when he wanted to rest, and to share it only with those who respected him. Some villagers came looking for him, but Brina set a condition. "You can only see him if you bring your own lantern." "Why?" they asked. And Brina replied, "Because if you don't bring your own light, you'll just take his, and that's not fair." Little by little, the villagers understood. They began to create their own ways to shine, with stories, songs, drawings, and smiles. Lumo returned to the village when he wanted to, not when he was needed. And this time, everyone welcomed him with hugs, not demands. Since then, the village shone differently, not because of one person's light, but because of the spark each heart could ignite. Moral: we should not shine to please others. Our inner light blooms when we are cared for, valued, and allowed to be ourselves. See you very soon with more magical stories that will make your imagination fly and touch your heart in every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 6.
What if a jump rope could take you to other universes? This story holds a powerful moral you'll discover at the end. In a forgotten corner of the attic lived Rope, a red cord with golden knots that whispered stories when the wind passed through. Rope had been forgotten by the children, but every night it dreamed of spinning again among laughter and jumps under the bright sun. One day, along came Azulina, a girl who didn't play with anyone. She had a patch over one eye and a collection of sad buttons in her pockets. Azulina found Rope hanging from a rusty nail. When she touched it, she felt a tingle that traveled from her hands up to her nose. "Do you want to play?" whispered Rope. Azulina was startled, but something in its voice made her nod. She took the first jump and vanished from the attic. When she opened her eyes, Azulina was in a floating meadow, where trees were made of crystal and sheep flew like kites. "You've jumped between worlds," said Rope gleefully. Azulina didn't understand how, but she felt that place understood her silences. In the new world, they met Drumkin, a drum with legs who only spoke by rhythmically hitting his belly. Drumkin guided them through singing hills and lakes that turned into mirrors when you told the truth. Azulina laughed for the first time in weeks. Rope spun faster with each burst of laughter, and the world seemed to respond with magic. But soon, a crack appeared in the sky. The perfect world began to unravel like wet paper. "Something's wrong!" cried Drumkin, pounding urgently. Azulina tried to jump back, but Rope wouldn't respond. "You can only return when you face what you left behind," said a deep voice from the cracked sky. Azulina looked into her pockets. The sad buttons were still there. Each one represented a day she felt lonely and quiet. Then she understood the magical world was a reflection of her emotions, and the crack was her fear of feeling invisible again. "I don't want to run anymore," said Azulina, tossing the buttons into the mirror lake. The water received them and returned her reflection, smiling. Rope glowed a vivid red. Its knots spun like celestial gears, and the ground began to tremble gently. "Now you can choose. Keep jumping between worlds or return and change your own," whispered Rope, wiser than before. Azulina looked at Drumpkin. "Thank you for teaching me to listen without words," she said, hugging him with her eyes closed. She made one more jump, and this time Rope took her straight to the rooftop of her building, where the wind tasted like adventure. In her hands, Rope was still alive. Azulina looked at it fondly. It wasn't just a toy. It was a key to imagine and to heal. The next day, Azulina went down to the park with Rope. She approached the other kids playing and said, with a firm voice, "Can I jump with you?" At first, they hesitated. But when they saw Rope sparkle a little, they smiled. "Of course, jump with us." Azulina laughed with them, and for the first time, she carried no sad buttons in her pockets, just a red cord full of stories. That night, Rope went back to sleep in its corner. But now it knew every jump with Azulina was a new story waiting to be born. In dreams, they returned to impossible worlds, not to escape, but to learn, imagine, and share. Drumpkin appeared sometimes, teaching children to speak from the heart, whether they had words or not. Azulina was no longer the lonely girl. She was the world jumper, the one who connected stories, laughter, and realities with a single leap. And Rope, that magical rope once forgotten, became the best friend of all who believed in imagination. Moral: sometimes, to change the world outside, we must first dare to jump within ourselves. See you very soon with more magical stories that will make your imagination soar and touch your heart in every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 7.
What would happen if one day the most important word in the world disappeared? This story holds a powerful moral you will discover at the end. In the kingdom of letters lived Zebu, a word with golden wings that had never been spoken by anyone, yet pulsed like a drum in every heart. Zebu had no meaning, or at least that's what it believed. Every time someone tried to say it, it vanished into a cloud of bright blue ink. One day, all the words began acting strange. Some hid away, others jumped off the pages, and some cried for no reason. The great dictionary, wise and old, said, "The word of balance is missing. Without it, language will break." No one knew which word it was. Only Zebu, silent and radiant, suspected it might be the key. But how could it prove it if no one could say it or understand it? That was when it met Trilo, a one-eared sprite who could hear thoughts, even the unspoken ones. "Zebu, your sound lives in the soul, not in the mouth," said Trilo. "But for you to be heard, you must go where no one remembers how to speak." That place was the Valley of Silence, where words were heavy as stones and whispers floated like lost balloons. Zebu and Trilo set off on the journey, crossing fields of question marks and storms of spinning commas. Along the way, they were joined by Glynn, a clock with no hands that only marked true feelings. I will count when the moment comes, it said. When they reached the Valley of Silence, everything was gray. No one spoke, only gazes, gestures, and a stillness that tightened the chest. Zebu tried to take flight and say itself, but vanished into a cloud of ink as always. Trilo simply frowned. This is not where you must be said, but where someone needs to hear you without expecting it, murmured Glynn, softly vibrating. Suddenly, they heard a sob. Behind a rock, a small being made of wrinkled paper was falling apart in tears. I forgot my word, whispered the being. I am nothing now. It was a sentence child, incomplete, meaningless, with no verb to make it exist. Zebu approached without saying a thing, and shone. The child looked at its wings and, without knowing why, smiled. Glynn turned. The moment had come. Trilo, moved, heard the child's thought. I want to have a voice again, it thought, and Zebu lit up like a star. For the first time, Zebu did not disappear. The child embraced it without saying it. In silence, it was made whole. And in that instant, all the words in the kingdom vibrated. The wind whispered, books opened, and the sky changed color. Zebu was no longer a word without meaning. It was the word that is not said, but felt. The one that lives in gestures, glances, and actions. The great dictionary sneezed with joy. It has returned, the word that gives meaning to all the others. The kingdom of letters regained its balance. The words stopped running away. The texts told their stories again, untangled. Trilo once again heard melodies and thoughts. Glynn marked true emotions, and the sentence child became a poem. But Zebu was no longer visible. It didn't need to be. It was everywhere, in hugs, in help, in shared laughter, and understood silence. Since then, every time someone acts with kindness, Zebu is there, like an invisible whisper that binds everything together. And though no one can pronounce it, everyone knows it. Because Zebu is more than a word. It is the thread that stitches hearts together. The Kingdom of Letters built a blank monument with no writing to remember it without needing to name it. The children of the kingdom learned that not all words are spoken. Some are lived, given, and shared. And in every school, every library, and every story, Zebu keeps traveling, without sound, but with the power to transform. Moral: sometimes the most important words are not spoken. They are felt, done, and lived from the heart. See you again soon with more magical stories that will make your imagination fly and touch your heart in every adventure.
Coming up next, story number 8.
What would you do if an elevator could take you to places that exist on no map? This story holds a great moral you'll discover at the end. In the dusty attic of a forgotten building lived Rulu, an old elevator with rusty buttons, but a mechanical heart full of dreams. No one used it, for its doors squeaked and its light flickered. Everyone preferred the stairs or the shiny new lifts in the other wing. Only Leah, a curious girl with star-shaped glasses who loved old things and believed everything had a secret story, ever visited it. One day, Leah pressed the button marked with a letter that didn't exist in the alphabet. Rulu shuddered, its cables creaked, and the lights flickered. When the doors opened, Leah saw no corridors or floors, but a floating forest where branches hung from the sky and the lakes were violet. "Where are we?" Leah asked. Rulu answered with a gentle hum, as though humming a forgotten song. The journey was only beginning. On every strange floor, Leah discovered wonders. One was made of liquid music, another of living candies, and yet another was completely invisible. But there were rules. Each world had a door back, and if you didn't return before the bell rang, you stayed there forever. One day, a new passenger appeared. Zark, a shadow creature with an umbrella hat and a voice that sounded like rain. Zark had no home. He'd been trapped between worlds for not following the elevator's rules. Yet he wasn't sad, only forgotten. "Are you looking for your perfect world too?" Leah asked. Zark nodded. Rulu trembled softly, as if remembering something. That day, they arrived at a floor without color. Everything was gray and silent, as if someone had switched off the place's emotions. Leah and Zark walked through empty streets. There were no laughs, no wind. Not even their reflections appeared in the mirrors. "This place is asleep," Zark whispered. "It's dangerous to stay too long. Time evaporates." They searched for the return door, but it wasn't there. The elevator had vanished. The gray floor had trapped them. "Rulu, come back!" Leah shouted, but only echo replied. Then Zark removed his hat and flung it into the dull sky. The hat glowed. It was an ancient travel marker, a beacon for sleeping worlds. "Rulu can follow it," Zark said. For hours they waited, sitting on the gray ground, telling stories so they wouldn't forget who they were. At last, the ground vibrated. A crack of light split the street, and from it emerged the elevator, whistling like a happy kettle. "I knew you'd come," Leah said, hugging the metal doors. Rulu hummed with joy and carried them to the next destination. This time it wasn't a strange world. It was their own building, but changed. Brighter, more alive, as though the journey had transformed it. Zark decided to stay. The building needed stories, and he had many to tell. He became the elevator's guardian. Leah kept visiting Rulu every day, writing tales of the worlds she'd seen, and those she still dreamed of exploring. But something had changed. Now other children lined up to ride with her, curious about the buttons with mysterious symbols. Rulu was no longer the forgotten elevator. It was the bearer of worlds, the guardian of imagination, and its bell rang like adventure chimes. One afternoon, a new button appeared on its own. Leah looked at it. It was a golden spiral that seemed to move. She smiled but didn't press it. Not yet. For she had learned that some worlds lie inside you and others wait. But their moment always comes. Zark taught her that being lost isn't bad if you're seeking something worthwhile. And Rulu, that even the forgotten can shine again. Each floor held a secret, each journey a lesson, and the true power wasn't in the buttons, but in daring to press them. Moral: sometimes what seems old or useless hides the key to the most magical journeys. You just have to dare to discover them. See you very soon with more magical tales that will make your imagination soar and touch your heart on every adventure.
And that brings our journey through these magical tales to a gentle close. Each story whispered a little lesson, sparked a smile, or warmed a heart. Thank you for sharing these moments of wonder with Uncle Pinocchio. Until our next adventure, keep dreaming, keep imagining, and never stop believing in magic.